right, everyone, welcome back to Student Dream TV, bringing you the best money, investing, and startup tips so that you can secure the bag before and after graduation. And as we continue our keynote series, I'm here today to talk with Ofo, just an incredible entrepreneur, speaker, leader who started his own business while he was a student and has since been able to pursue it full time. And when I think about his story, he is just the master of leverage and leveraging every single gift, every single resource, every single connection that he has in order to build his wealth. And he's done that. He's raised over $1.1 million for his company. They have 14 people on staff. They just won, they just raised $500,000. So if there's anybody that can give you advice on how to make money during and after COVID, it's him. So if you want to do that, keep listening.
Awesome. Well, now I appreciate you having me. As mentioned, Ofo Ezeugwu, CEO of Who's Your Landlord, where the whole focus is empowering and informing the rental community through landlord reviews, housing literacy content, and software for real estate developers to better understand their needs of their residents.
Thank you, Ofo. I appreciate it. Can you, before we jump in, can you just say a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, and, you've said a bit about what you do, but who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Yeah, so I was born in Paterson, New Jersey. That's North New Jersey. One of the most dangerous neighborhoods in New Jersey, but of course in the U.S. But it was that. But I think my story starts there for a different reason. I'm the son of immigrants from Nigeria and Barbados. Both my parents are in the medical field, and St. Joe's Hospital, where me and my siblings were all born, was one of the first hospitals to give them a chance. So I think the starting point was immediately help. How do you help other people? Because we've obviously been provided help to get to where we are. And both my parents' stories are just kind of crazy when you hear them, but I think any child of immigrants or immigrants themselves have those stories, and that's just what it is. A lot of blessings, luck, and opportunity go into us being where we are. So I grew up primarily in Maryland, Ellicott City to be specific. Went to school out in Philly at Temple University. And then got to New York City, Brooklyn, New York. And now I'm actually physically in Buffalo right now, but primarily live in Brooklyn, New York, and have lived there for the last 6.5 years.
Awesome. Awesome. And I mean, you have done so much when it comes to leveraging your resources. And so I'd love to hear just from you as a business owner in this time, how have you been leveraging your resources to adjust to this new normal that we're in?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big things is having folks as 1099 contractors, right? Like a lot of times you may not be able to afford someone fully outright, but a lot of times people, especially nowadays, don't necessarily desire that either all the time, right? Sometimes people just want an opportunity for you to be one of their clients or whatever the case is. So you're able to get a lot, because my thing is this: it's when you hire someone young at what they're doing, so new at what they're building. Or new at a certain area, you might get them, for $50K salary, probably more if you're in like a New York City, but they still have a massive learning curve. They're usually pretty green. Somebody that's probably in the same position that's been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years or more, you're starting at $80,000, $90,000. So for somebody you're contracting to, you're one of several clients, they might charge you $20,000 for the entire year to do work, but you also know that they know everything about that work. And so the learning curve is just understanding your business and then applying what they know to your business. That's a very different place than, bringing someone in and then paying for benefits and health and all this stuff.
Right.
So that helps you stretch a dollar a little bit longer and get top expertise. I think in the beginning I was concerned about consultants because it seemed like so much money, but as you level up, they end up being fairly cheap comparatively to bring someone in full time. So that's what I'd say first. Second is there always has to be, I think, a few North Stars happening at once. One is the preeminent one. What is your business working towards? But you always have to have a few balls in the air juggling wise, right? In the sense that as one is, because a lot of things you're talking about in terms of leverage, these are all human beings. So people take long to make certain decisions, and that's not necessarily your fault. So while maybe this strain is working its way, matriculating its way through the corporate bureaucracy or hierarchy that you're going through, this one maybe there's only a few steps to getting it done, and this one maybe there's only one step to getting it done. but you have to have multiple things in the air that you're juggling. That way you're always aiming again north. So those would be I just think the first two things I point out is how to hire, and then also too, how to have a North Star.
How to hire, how to have a North Star. And I think just to add some color to the conversation, can you, like in a few minutes, just tell us a bit about like the Who's Your Landlord story? Because I mean, we met, it's so funny, like just looking back at just the last 8 years, there's so many people who we've come up together. I think about you, Amina, Robert Greenfield, all these folks who are really like blowing up right now. And we all kind of started at the same time in our different spheres. And so I remember you being at Student Dream's first business pitch competition, where we raised money, and, it's just amazing to see your growth. But can you just tell a bit about like the Who's Your Landlord story, like how you were able to secure the bag as a college student through starting a business?
Yeah, it's a long story. And I think that's what people don't want to hear nowadays. I think we're in a microwave society. We want to move fast, but this story is 7 years in the making, right? 2 of which were in beta when I was in college and coming out. Awesome. But like, I had this idea like almost 8 years ago.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's actually the reality. 2 years you spend in beta building it out as a senior in college and into the real world, trying to figure out how does this even have legs. We get into Dream Adventures in 2015. That's when we actually get incorporated and actually do all this stuff. And so we've been a live business for 5 years now. And so that being the case, I think I started off thinking the biggest, baddest person on the block was the landlord. We call them a landlord. I mean, that unto itself is very powerful or crushing, depending on which side you look at it.
Wow.
So the idea was, well, how could you provide reviews, insights, so you know what to expect before ever signing a lease? And this was based off the backs of the fact that we were learning you had female tenants being harassed by their male landlords, and a lot of this was from a student perspective, talk less of being an adult and still experiencing those same things. You had infestation issues, you had maintenance requests that weren't being fulfilled. You had electrical fires that would light someone's house on fire, they'd come back to the house and the landlord would still charge them rent for the next month. We just saw all kinds of ridiculous situations. And we've helped everyone from homeless people all the way up to the director of branding at Twitter, who had an issue with her landlord last year, her and her husband, and they reached out to us for help, right? So everyone, no one's absolved from these issues. It just becomes a matter of how can we be transparent, how can we be communicable, how can we be amicable in terms of meeting in the center, that whole mediation process. And what I learned was it wasn't that the landlord was the biggest, baddest person on the block in all this. It was their lenders. Lenders who were backing developers, lenders who were backing landlords, lenders who were backing management firms. So if we could get the ear of the lenders, that being the Fannie Mae's, the government-sponsored entities, that being the Freddie Macs, that being the Berkadias of the world, if we could get them to listen and see that our software, our data is valuable, it actually work its way down through the landlord. So if the top is telling them get this software, the rest are then going to use it as appropriate to secure funds going forward for them. So your job really is to, I always say, make sure your company is valuable to someone at every moment of its existence. And sometimes it's not even the direct user. You want it to be, but sometimes it's like, who is the story most resonating with? And for us, yes, it's the resident. Yes, it's these issues and these woes. But the person who actually subliminally cares about this, that the renter has no idea exists, are the lenders. And so if you can work with the lenders to make them understand how important this is and how this helps them from a credit perspective, risk management, loss mitigation perspective, all of a sudden that story ends up kind of going like this back to the landlords, and then of course affecting the renters and providing a tangible way for them to experience these positive things when it comes to quality of living.
Wow, that's great. So it is a long story, and it's about, being in it for a while and just figuring out, who is it valuable to at the moment, at this time, who does it resonate with, because they all play a piece in you being able to add value.
Yeah, I mean, my saying with that is just like, you got to stick around long enough for something to happen. That's what it is.
I love it. And what would you say, because again, just your concept, you said one of your mottos is no steps backwards, just forward progress. Can you talk to, the students right now, right? They're graduating. The students graduated last week, they're graduating this weekend. And I know many of them can be intimidated by, oh snap, like, look at all these horror reports on the news. There's no jobs, 30%, 20% unemployment, all these millions of people, what in the world am I going to do? How can they actually, what's your advice to them on how they can make forward progress during this time?
Yeah. So with that saying, I mean, I think it's become very popular to be like, fail forward, right? Like we came up at a time. Now I sound like an old head, but we
I know.
came up at a time where tech was hot. Doesn't mean it was
Yes.
booming, but it was hot, right? And it is still cool to be an entrepreneur, but it was like very cool back then. And it was all these fast company headlines and TechCrunch headlines about so-and-so raises $10 million, $50 million, $100 million. You know, there'd be like $10 million seed round. You're like, seed round?
Yeah.
And that was just commonplace. And I think that actually it cloaked this industry in fabric that wasn't truthful. The reality of it is, yes, you have to have a buildup of understanding that you're going to fail at certain things. But the idea of failing forward, what it really is getting at is, and what I get at actually is, for women-led businesses, or for female CEOs, for Black and brown CEOs, throw that shit away. Like yeah, yes, you can fail, but a lot of your failures are going to be silent ones, and that's okay. That's for you to put the bandage on and let it heal up. You know, that's for you to sew together yourself and let it heal up, and to talk and create a network of friends and amazing people that can build and pour into you. But that public narrative of just keep failing and it's going to get something is not true. One of my closest friends, a mentor and a board member of ours, younger Jewish, Eric. You know Eric.
Yeah, Eric.
He talked to me
So
earlier.
Eric, just for context, y'all, Eric is on my board as well. Eric is on Ofo's board. Eric has, raised 30 million for his first company that he sold, and now he's I think he's about to sell his second one. Sidebar.
Yeah. So, Eric talked a lot about, for him, thinking about if you're raising capital, it's going to take twice as long and cost you twice as much money to do it. And he was very candid with me. And if that's twice as long for a young white dude, then it's going to be longer for me. It's going to be harder for me. And failures that that he can necessarily have in the market and use that to say in future investment meetings, this helped me to learn X, Y, Z. It's what's going to be captured is that he raised 30 million, not what happened with the 30 million. For our story, if I raise 30 million and if the company doesn't grow or get sold or what have you, the only win here is just the network I created on the way to 30 million. The 30 million story is not one that's additive to my story. That's just unfortunately how it is. You can spin it, you can angle it, you can do all the things, but we don't have the leeway to fail forward in that way. So really what I mean is to keep putting one foot before the next one. Don't take these things as knocking you backward or even sideways. A lot of them, they're just stalling you, right? Yeah. Like, you have to, if you've done weight training before, your bench press, record personal was one certain thing. And then you kept doing it and it felt like that was the max you could lift. It's called your 1 rep max. Yeah. And the more you're in there, you're not in the gym every day doing your max, you're in the gym doing other sets of weights. And then you try for your max again. And next thing you know, you did it 2 or 3 times. You're like, oh shit, I didn't realize I got stronger.
Right.
Right. So that's what it is like letting yourself have the grace and time to methodically and in a persistent way push forward and not get so drug high by all the headlines you're seeing. Because like, as you and I know, numbers lie oftentimes, and especially the stories behind them. And so you have to be aware of that and realize what your path is and what your story is.
Nice. And so what do you see as like some opportunities? What would be some of your career or financial advice to the graduating class of 2020?
You guys are entering a tough place, right? If you were entering high school, so if you're graduating from high school, you entered high school in the fall of 2016, right? Donald Trump.
Wow.
And if you're graduating now, you're leaving with this. I mean, God bless.
I didn't even think about that.
I stole that from someone this morning on Twitter. I was like, damn, that's cool. So look, God bless. Like that is a hard slug, but I mean, in all that, it's weird, right? Because we've seen the rise of vanity to a whole new extreme. I think in the 80s, it was the rise of monetary vanity. The Trump era, actually, right? Gold toilets and Jaguars as your pets and stuff. So ways of exemplifying, opulence. Now it's doing all that, but from this device, and half of it, if no, not most of it, is fake. Wow. So we're in a very weird space now. But what I'd say in terms of thinking of how to make money is first think about all the opportunities in front of you. Think about the fact that nobody knows what's going to happen. People are paid, market researchers are paid to figure out what's going to happen. It's understood they have no clue what's going to happen, right? And also with all this government stuff and rent payments and mortgage, a lot of this stuff, the government's just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. They are talking to very prominent people to get advice and insights, but it's an administrative thing, right? Like if every administration, and I mean that from the government level, and I mean that from a local government level, and I mean that from corporate level, has their 2 or 3 North Stars. And a lot of times the extraneous verbiage that you use to explain something they'll acknowledge it as being important, but just not important enough to them to change their roles. So knowing that's the case, a lot of it's incumbent upon you to do something. There are now nearly 30 million plus people that are filed for unemployment. To me, that's 30 million plus people that can possibly do a job, right? like right now, like they want something. Some people are getting unemployment and all kinds of stuff, but there are folks that are really hurting that maybe need the opportunity, that have the business acumen or whatever acumen you need. And it's your job right now to find those people, right? So I would say first, thinking through how you want to grow any organization you're in, thinking through what positions are necessary today. But before any of that, it's knowing what you want to accomplish, and then utilizing all the free digital resources out there.
Yes.
Right now. There's tons of them.
And we'll put that right below in the show notes. You'll see our digital resources guide that we put together for you. So you can just click that. And if any of this video has been helpful so far, just smash that like button. Go ahead, Ofo.
Yeah, just
all the free resources.
I pray about, all the time is for the Lord to keep me addicted to learning.
Wow.
That you gotta have that insatiable desire to learn more and more and more. It's fun. And I truly only want to work with people who either haven't found the fun but can find the fun in it, or have already found the fun in it, and just have that youthful desire to know more. You don't ever want to lose that.
Yeah, that's great, Ofo. And what would you say what are some of the opportunities that you see? When you think about, hey, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you got into this or started researching X, Y, and Z in 2020, you'll be in a good position. What are some of the opportunities you see?
Probably digital currency. And I'll admit my knowledge on it isn't as extensive as I'd want it to be yet. But when I think about, Bitcoin, I think about our podcast producer, Franz, just be running through them because he's always plugged into this world. But that's something to be learning about right now, because a lot of that language has made its way into our stimulus bills and whatnot. I think we talk about cash right now, but what's the future of money? So that's one thing. And when you hear cats like Drake, and I think the song is Omerta, but he talks about all the cash digital, like he's not talking about his credit cards, right? So like by the time celebrities you're tapping into those markets, it's already too late sometimes. So yeah, I've been learning a lot about that. The challenge myself to do it. So I'm speaking to myself in a lot of this stuff, learning more about the stock market, how to best to best get involved right now. As you can see, the Dow is doing better than it's ever done, and yet millions of people are laid off. So that's an incongruency that has always been a reality, I think, in America and in capitalism. It's capitalizing on something to get more value.
Yeah.
So from that vantage point, I think at the very least, what you could be doing now, learning how to promote yourself on social media, learning how to put together a team, learning how to read through spreadsheets, your profit and loss statements, balance sheets, and more than anything, I think there's so many amazing people right now giving away free information. Like I was on a Zoom call yesterday with Robert F. Smith, with Senator Cory Booker, right? Wow. And it just was an hour of them riffing back and forth about what does all this mean for young Black men, and our wealth and whatnot. And the thing is, like, getting access to those kind of chats is not easy, like.
What did he say? What did he say? Can you drop some of the nuggets that they shared?
Yeah. So some of the things were actually pretty scary, but things we know. So nine out of 100 young people who grow up in poverty will never go to college.
Mm.
I'm sorry. Well, 9 out of 100. I'm sorry. 9 out of 100 will go to college. So
Oh, wow.
9% of kids that grow up in poverty go on to go to college. That's Senator Booker was dropping that information. And, you know, Robert F. Smith had got off the phone with Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin earlier in the day, who was asking him for advice on how they should go about, utilizing the rest of the $150 billion they have left in that new $484 billion stimulus. So there's only $150 billion left. They just announced it a week and a half ago, right? So that's how fast this money is moving. And unfortunately, what we're finding heavily is that in Black communities, only half of folks have applied for them, but a small percentage of the half that have applied for them are actually getting approved for those PPP loans and those economic disaster relief loans. So it's a scary time, and right now is actually not the scariest time. That health-wise, it is for now. There might be another wave in the fall, but economically, like, and Senator Booker pointed this out, I think, very well. You mentioned that he's 50 years old. In every decade of his life, the economic wealth gap, between Black and white has dramatically shrunk. Until 07, 08, we had the recession, the Great Recession. Right. It wiped out all the wealth Black families had created in that time. So we started us back at ground zero. You have a little bit of time, a ramp up time between then and 2020. And now this is going to be worse because we're already in a worse place economically than we were back then. So this over the next 3 months to the next 2 to 4 years, it's going to be a painful time for a lot of our families, for a lot of our networks, because the ramp up time to get your business back to where it needs to be is going to be extremely tough. And so in that, I find a lot of opportunities because, as Robert F. Smith pointed out, it's not a matter of us needing support and programs from all these different communities. It's just more resources, more funding options, more banking opportunities within our communities. That's enough to fund our creativity, to fund our business acumen, and to drive the circulation of the dollars within our communities to make it be longstanding and grow that wealth again. But that's what it's going to come down to.
Thank you so much, Ofo, for your time. You know, if people want to get in contact with you, you guys can just find him at Ofo.
Hey, no problem. Chief _Ofo.
Chief _Ofo. Yeah. Appreciate you so much. And again, we'll put the link to Who's Your Landlord. So for all of y'all who are renters, sign up, get on the platform. And again, thank you so much. And for everybody listening, now is time for you to take action. Ideas are cheap. Ideas are broke. Time is money. So start now when it comes to applying what you learned today. Let us know in the comment section below exactly what you're going to apply, what changes you're going to take, what changes you're going to make. All right. And again, we can help you. Join the Student Dream community, join our membership program to be able to constantly get access to the training, the network, the opportunities, the resources needed to go from idea to asset. All right. So thank you guys. Thank you, Ofo, and see you next time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.